Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Recovering from the drive back up here from San Diego.
Yep, a long one, and especially a long one with the traffic through the mountains, it sounds like.
Traffic north of L.A. kind of hit me upside the head.
Plenty of time to just sit there and dissociate and think about the Packers and just think about a lot of thoughts as you just sit there and stare at taillights.
Yeah. I also spent a lot of time trying to get radio feed of World Cup games, almost entirely unsuccessful in the mountains.
Not entirely surprisingly in the mountains. Yeah, it's just like you could probably barely get AM radio anywhere, and I'm pretty sure most of the sports are FM now.
Yeah, I was fighting for. I was like, is that crowd noise or is that just static? What station have I picked up here? Is this promising to hold on to for a while?
Whatchamacallit? Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. You really have to have just a bunch of stuff downloaded if you're going through those mountains, because there's no internet, there's not a lot of radio, and otherwise it's the alphabet game but with no signs. It's just license plate numbers, and that's entirely it. But anyway,
you're in bumper over traffic, so the plates aren't changing.
Exactly. It's like, do I need to start trying to lane merge and lane switch until I can get some new license plates to pick from? But anyway, we are here today. We are going to do our semi-annual. I don't know if we did it last year, but we might have done it 2 years ago. This is our under the radar / forgotten Packers episode, where we're going to talk about some players that maybe we haven't talked about in a while, because a lot of times we talk about the starters, we talk about the position competitions, we talk about the draft picks, et cetera, but we don't often talk about those guys that maybe were a draft pick from a few years ago. Maybe they're on the roster bubble. Maybe they're guys that these are essentially guys that we feel like we haven't talked enough about yet, but are going to, we think at least, play a role on Green Bay in the 2026-2027 season. And so I think we each picked 4 players to talk about. So we're going to go back and forth talking about those as our quote-unquote forgotten Packers. Before we get to that, though, a couple of pieces of news and a couple pieces of housekeeping. If you like what you hear, subscribe, whether that's, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, et cetera. Leave a like, leave a review, leave a comment, tell a friend, tell a stranger, as I always say. And then also follow us on Blue Sky at Father-Son Packer for, latest updates on Packers-related news, roster moves, et cetera. Once again, that's at Father-Son Packer on Blue Sky. Speaking of that news, though, we did get one piece of news. It is kind of like probably the deadest part of the season, right? Fair to say, where it's just there's the least amount of news. But we did get 2 things. The first is we got a roster move, and we have been speculating about this for a while, that the Packers have been trying to add a tight end, and they have been doing so to no avail for several months now. But they have finally added a tight end. Luke Lachey
finally escaped the voodoo doll.
I know. Luke Lachey, tight end out of Iowa, and that name might be familiar to you because we did try to sign him about a month ago, and then he failed the physical. But now we have signed him, and he has passed the physical. So it seemed like that must have been a minor ailment. He was a 7th round pick of the Texans in 2025. He's pretty athletic, 8.02 relative athletic score, mostly as an explosive type athlete. He's pretty big, 6'5" and 6'8", 251, with a 35-inch vert and a 10-foot broad, which are both quite great. Not the fastest guy, though, only ran a 4.86. 10-yard split was more closer to average, and then his agilities are both also closer to average. Didn't see any regular season time last year, but did play in the preseason. When he was at Iowa, he lined up mostly as an inline tight end, which I think is going to be the role that Green Bay is going to ask him to do, because we don't really have one of those on the roster besides Kraft. He was there 439 of 542 snaps at Iowa. So that's kind of something there. Dane Brugler had him as the number 18 tight end in the 2025 draft. He's a little bit taller than most Goot tight ends, you were telling me, and this is something you have in there, and significantly slower, but closer to team average in jumps and agilities, and only 3 drops in college for a 3.4% drop rate, which was
3 drops the last year.
Last year, apologies, for 3.4%.
But for his whole career, I think it was still under 4. It was 3.9% for his whole career.
Yeah, it's a lower number, and so that was top 30% in his class. And so yeah, he's, I think, going to have a good shot to make the roster. We'll talk a little bit about the tight end room just kind of being a bit of an up for grabs room at this point. I would say, would you say the top 2 or top 3 spots are kind of spoken for?
Oh, that kind of depends. We'll go into that later. I would say 2 spots are spoken for. Is it 3?
Is it 3? Because I feel like Wiley has a spot. And I feel like Musgrave is more... I honestly feel like Wiley has more of a spot than Musgrave.
Yes. It's possible if like, okay, if Kraft is ready early, Wiley look good in preseason, and Lachey looks like he has something, do they trade Musgrave?
What do you even get for him? Because he's
Probably
not the
not
type
enough.
of tight end that's popular right now.
No. Ideally, we get an offensive lineman for him.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, ideally, yes, but
Ideally,
I don't.
We get a starting left tackle. Do you think maybe the Niners will part with Trent Williams for him?
I think the idea of Musgrave is better than Musgrave as an actual player, and he's just like not at all the type of tight end that we would even like use. Like, I think there's something to be said for the fact that he hasn't been used in like the ways that like his skill set ought to be used. Like, he should be used going up the seam more. He should be used on like big crossers. But at the same time, it's like he hasn't exactly like excelled a ton at those things, even when asked to do them. So it's like I think it's a little bit column A, little column B, well, maybe chicken or egg. But anyway, we're getting long on the news items. But anyway, Luke Lachey.
But I would just say,
any thoughts on him?
Or
Musgrave.
Musgrave will make a nice diving catch somewhere, but the thing is, he's really more of a big receiver than a tight end. And if you think of him as a receiver, would you want him out there ahead of Watson, Reed, or Golden?
Exactly. Or like even Bo Melton, like, to be honest. And
Bo
like,
Melton was killing it
and
during
practice apparently. Yeah.
Practice, yeah.
Yeah. So but that's the main thing. Any thoughts on Lachey though, as we circle back to him?
I'm glad they were able to add him. I see like mixed things about his blocking ability. I think that's one of the things they want to be able to have him for, so that, because like right now they basically only have Kraft who can really line up in line, and
yeah,
so
and it sounds like it sounds like Zierlein was saying about his blocking that he's like decent, but he just doesn't have like he's not a very good finisher as a blocker. Like, he lacks some strength, but like he's decent at getting like the angles, but so maybe more of like a zone blocking type guy. But yeah, like you said, we don't really have a guy like that besides Kraft on the roster, because Wiley's not exactly, he's like more of a Musgrave guy.
Yeah, he's even built like Musgrave.
Yeah, which I never realized he was quite that tall as Musgrave is, but he is. We were discussing that just last time, actually. But yeah, I think Lachey makes a lot more sense for this offense, even if he's not as talented as Musgrave.
Yeah, I think they need somebody like that. And so if they want to line up with a kind of tight formation and have two tight ends who can either block or go out in a route, it's not exactly Musgrave's game.
Yeah. And I think
and I haven't watched like how well can Lachey catch a ball and then turn around and run a field.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like, can he turn? Can he turn? Because that's like that's kind of important. The other piece of news, unless you had anything else you wanted to say on Lachey, was we did get a, I guess, minor Micah Parsons injury update. According to his brother, Terrence Parsons Jr., and this is kind of also reported other places as well. I was hard to tell exactly where it was originally coming from, but he could miss up to half the season, it sounds like. Missing the first 8 games of the season is on the table, it sounds like. It sounds like they're just really prioritizing, like timeline be damned, full recovery is the most important thing, which is, of course, I think the right way to approach it. If he were to miss the first 8 games, that would mean his first game back would be against the Patriots in November. So a bit different than maybe some of the original timelines that people were talking about. And like we were saying, Micah said earlier, the goal is to get 100% healthy for the end of season run and going forward. So that makes sense. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, he is cited numbers that I haven't looked up about players who come back too quickly. Doesn't always work out. So pushing to come back as early as you can is maybe a bad strategy league-wide. Yeah,
I think, and it should always be.
But I think players are always trying to get on the field, and possibly to their own detriment. So they look at the long term. We like to have 5 or 6 first team All Pro seasons.
Yeah, give or take. One or not too greedy. We wouldn't mind like 8 to 10. Why not?
Or 8 to 10 with 4 Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, why
awards.
not? If we're just putting things out there. But anyway, those are really the two main pieces of news going around right now. Nothing else really out there in the ether at all. Although you were saying you were seeing some Vita Vea trade rumors the other day.
There's all kinds of crazy stuff out there because I think there's something about Vea wanting a new contract, and so it's like, oh, the Packers should get him. And the Eagles not wanting to sign Jalen Carter. Oh, the Packers should get him.
I
saw someone's like, oh, the Packers are looking into Max Crosby. It's like, they are? Where did you get that idea?
We're not. Yeah, no, there's no way. But yeah,
there's like all kinds of. We are in the bonkers.
It's July
season.
It is, or sorry, it's June. It's very much June in terms of the NFL coverage.
We still got a month
to
go. We still got more than a month to go before training camp starts.
Exactly. And then we'll finally get some news to at least talk about. But anyway, that does bring us to the main portion of what we're talking about today, which is our players that we have not been talking about enough. Depth players we're keeping an eye on, forgotten Packers, however you want to put it. I think we each have 4 players, and I think the main thing was no guys that are going to be starters, and not really guys that we've talked about yet, and trying to stay away from and no draft picks, I guess, is the other one, because we've talked about them a lot too. So with those kind of three,
I guess I have some draft picks in mind. So I've broken.
I wouldn't say you don't have a draft
every
pick.
one of these rules.
You don't have a draft pick. You have an UDFA. I mean, like rookie draft picks.
Oh, rookie draft picks.
Yes, rookie draft picks. Yes.
They're gonna say. I've got a guy we've just been talking about. I got 2 draft picks.
I've got plenty of draft picks, but no like rookies, like
rookie draft picks.
Yeah, no, we've talked enough about Jagger Burton and DDS.
We've done
exactly. We've done deep dives into those guys. We don't need to talk about them
guys.
too much.
Yes.
But anyway, with that said, with those caveats, with those parameters, who is the first guy you want to talk about that we have not talked about enough yet this offseason?
We just talked about it some, but I wanted to just give a shout out to Josh Wiley because I think he's got a good chance of being tight end number 2.
I think he's currently well in the lead on being tight end number 2.
They had passed him last year already. Yeah. Like you said, they are he's not quite as athletic as Musgrave because he's not quite as fast, but he's still like similarly kind of tall and lanky. He's like, what is he, 6'6" and a 6'6" and a half, a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little lighter at 248, but close. Musgrave 253. Good and just good enough speed.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I feel like I know he's not as athletic on paper, but it does feel like just a more fluid athlete than Musgrave.
Well, this is the thing, I don't think athleticism is really captured all aspects of it. Because there's kind of like your basic coordination. Can you run and change direction without falling over?
Yeah,
it's like
exactly
when you have to say Musgrave stayed on his feet.
Yeah, like when you have to be like it's a special occasion when he's able to turn up field is like it's not a good sign. But anyway, I do think I totally agree on Wiley because I felt like he showed a little bit last year. And the other interesting thing on Wiley, which I think is another reason that he's kind of cemented himself ahead of Musgrave, just a far more versatile player. Like they were having him as a fullback in these offseason programs already. And I know he's taller, so that's kind of like a bit of a non-traditional placement for him. But could you imagine like Musgrave as a fullback? Like I don't think that's even in his wheelhouse whatsoever.
No, I don't think he has the leverage.
Yeah, maybe it's just like their cut. Maybe Musgrave's a lot more high cut, and that's why he looks taller. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but every time I look at Musgrave, I'm like, yeah, that's by far the tallest like tight end I've seen out there. And then you were telling me Wiley's the same height, which, like I said before, was surprising. But I think Wiley has already well overtaken the number 2 tight end spot. I think the question is just how much 2 tight end stuff you expect the Packers to run this year, right?
Right, and I think they're trying to. They're looking for it. Yeah. So Wiley's like rating when targeted was much better than Musgrave's, second only to Kraft on the team last year. Rating of 131 compared, Kraft was 157. It's like bonkers. And Musgrave 98.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean his yards per route run are not that special, but his drop percentage was a straight up 0.
Yeah, and
No drops last year.
And I was just looking at this because I was like, because I think a lot of the times what we have talked about so far this offseason is that the ideal like personnel group out there is the three big receivers, Watson, Golden, and Reed, that we think, and then Kraft, and then a running back, probably Jacobs. And that, like, how much time is that second tight end going to get if those guys are all available? But it is fair to say that, last year, the Packers did run 12 personnel 34% of the time, 11 personnel 56% of the time. I'm looking at Sumer Sports for this. And then they ran 13 personnel, rather just 1.4% of the time. But so a third of the plays, they did have two tight ends out there. And so, like, Wiley, if he wins that second tight end spot, like, that's going to be a real role in the offense. Like, even if we think that, like, they're going to run more 11 this year, like, it's still going to be about a third of the snaps.
Yeah, it's still going to be a significant chunk of the amount of the time on the field.
Yeah,
for
exactly. Speaking of weapons, though, is there anything else on Wiley you wanted to say? Because I was going to go to my first one.
That was it. I think he's shown good hands. He's got good athleticism.
He's decent with the ball in his hands. He's not, and he's like a slightly below average blocker, but like not like a catastrophe as a blocker.
No, I don't. Not a catastrophe. It's not excellent, but it's okay. Yeah, he has more yards after catch than Musgrave.
Yeah, and like it just fits the offense better. Speaking of yards after catch, though, my first player is a player that I feel like doesn't get talked about like he was a top 100 pick and like a reason, and like is next up on the depth chart if any of the starters get hurt. We assume, at least. And that's Savion Williams. Because this is a guy who, third round, day 2 pick last year, third round pick, clearly a priority for the Green Bay front office. And it just felt like he we never really quite knew what to do with him last year, because we tried using him as a gadget guy. And I was just looking at his usage last year. The most snaps he played in a game last year was against Carolina, where he had 19 snaps, which was not a very good game for him. Beyond that, just like 12 snaps against Pittsburgh, 11 snaps against Washington in week 2, and just not a whole lot of touches on offense, not a whole lot of targets. Like, if you just look at him as a receiver, over the course of the year, he only had 10 targets. And I mean, if we're talking about where he was getting used, there was the one real downfield shot against the Giants where he made that great contested catch that kind of saved the playoff lives in some ways. But beyond that, it's like you're looking at these games: Detroit A. -4, Dallas A. -2, Pittsburgh A. -5. Like, he was truly only used as a gadget guy really last year.
Like,
but I do think it's
screens. Yeah,
exactly.
I remember
and
at
handoffs.
one point of the season, and handoffs, handoffs, jet screens, wide receiver screens,
jet sweeps.
But there was, at one point is like for the season he had a negative A.
Well, it's kind of crazy. So he had 10 targets last year and 11 carries. So like he was truly used like almost exclusively as a gadget guy. And we have not talked about him really much at all, but he's probably wide receiver 4 this year. He's probably the next man up.
Firmly.
Well, you'd think, but I think Bo Melton is like kind of like in that spot almost also in some ways. I would not entirely be surprised if Bo Melton ends up being wide receiver 4 and Savion falls down to 5. But I'm just curious to see
actual target share, or
in terms of snap share, I would say. But I'm curious to see, because he's either wide receiver 4 or 5. I think we'd like to see, a second-year, third-round pick win that job as the number 4 guy. He's in line to take a good amount of snaps. I'm curious what he looks like in year 2, because to be fair, also he's playing through injury at sometimes. There was like that thing where Matt LaFleur was like, I've never seen my starting returner come off the bus in a boot and then play in the game. And I thought he was actually pretty decent as a returner last year. And then how much is he used? What does he look like going into year 2, like I said? And then, how, like, is he going to be just a gadget guy again, or is he going to get a chance to be a real deal wide receiver? Because Gutekunst talked about when we drafted him was like, no, we see him as a real receiver who then can do other stuff. And then his usage would say something totally different, because that was not at all how the coaching staff used him.
LaFleur does not agree.
Yeah, I was going to say that was not how he was used. And none of his touches were not very successful either, I would say. They were not exactly like a very successful like set of like screens and carries.
There seems to be a decent number of instances the last few years where LaFleur's actions are not matching with Gutekunst's words, as if they disagree on certain players' either abilities or role in the team. Like Golden, for example, as well.
Yeah.
And Gutekunst started to send off players that
it's like it's the well we talked about.
Your days are numbered.
We talked about it's the Moneyball thing where it's like
you're not playing. You're not starting.
You're not starting Pena tonight. It says that it was Giambi's gone too. But what's someone call it? Yeah, exactly. So I do think. I mean, what do you think? Do you think Savion Williams is going to get like real snaps as like a true like outside boundary wide receiver, or do you think it's going to be more of like you're big Tyler Ervin is what you are on this offense, buddy?
Of their top 4 guys, he is the only other one with a frame to block. So you think that would get him some snaps.
Well,
unless
Watson,
you have
Watson, to be fair.
Well, as I said, I meant the only other one.
Oh, the only other one. Fair.
But so you would need more than one, unless like Sturdivant or Nair, move up and start doing something unexpected.
Yeah. I mean, and that would be a good problem to have.
Who have both actually been looking good. If I would have pulled it, you could have like grabbed another one of those guys as a spoiler. Neither one is on my list, but I feel like Nair would have been a good guy to add here.
Exactly,
so he's been looking good. He's bigger than I realized. Athletic,
and has been and got snaps in that Chicago game. Like one snap. And snaps is wrong. He got a snap. He was activated for the playoff game, which says something.
And got in on a critical third down or something. I don't think it was a nothing play either.
No, it was like end of the game, yeah. So I think Savion Williams is just a very interesting player and is a total, like, I have no idea what to expect from him this year, but I'm interested. Anyway, who's the next player you had?
So, okay, going for not recent, but a draft pick, Tyron Hopper. So,
a true mystery man, I would say, a real mystery man.
A guy who comes in and like gets in special teams. Every once in a while he makes play, but then he'll get beat. I looked at his numbers, so he only had like 50 coverage snaps, but he had the best coverage grade for all the linebackers on the team at 80.6.
Well, I think some of that is buoyed a little bit by because he had 2 interceptions, I think, maybe. Or one, he had a pick. He had a pick in a very small number of snaps, I think it was. But still, the counterpoint is he did have a pick. And not a lot of other guys on the roster did, like linebackers or otherwise. So, no, I think that's totally fair.
So I'm very interested what he could do. He's got good athleticism. His tackling still needs a little bit of work. I was looking, his missed tackle rate was still like around 14%, which is better than the 22% he had in his last year in college. So he's on an upward trajectory.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's still something to clean up.
Because that was the main thing we were worried about Hopper coming out of college was like, can he even play special teams if he can't tackle? Like, but isn't it weird that it feels like, again, taken with a 3rd round pick, like a pretty high value pick, and just like has never had a chance to see the field.
It's that 3rd round pick, man. You got Kraft.
And we really Ryan comeback of the century, and a major comeback. Because I remember I used to talk about Ryan like this guy, like this is like the epitome of a Packers 3rd round pick. This guy can't get on the field at all. And then
despite taking PEDs,
that was true. That first year, I was like, so what does he look like without the PEDs? I mean, my goodness, he got 4 snaps, but he has really turned it around.
Yeah, so now we're counting on him as a starting center.
Yeah.
Spoiler, he's not on my list, seeing as he's already started a whole bunch of games and is expected to start. I didn't cheat that much. But yeah, I'm excited to see Hopper. So here's because another reason I bring him up, they've held on to McDuffie, but he had a connection with Hafley dating back to Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
And Gannon doesn't have that connection. Will he be more interested in moving Hopper up the list? Now, the other thing is on the counter is that they're going to have even fewer, off-ball linebackers on the field in the system.
In a true 3-4. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's the other thing is like it's really not it's not looking good for Hopper in terms of like how he fits into like
I
this
think he has to
defense.
get ahead of McDuffie to have a role. So that's the thing to keep an eye on. Kenny McDuffie's a better tackler. Hopper's a better cover. Seems to be a better coverage linebacker, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But both those guys are going to be like who is sort of the next linebacker up role, not a frontline player, but who's going to be like filling in, or if they do weird things in terms of alignments.
Exactly. And I think that it's tough for Hopper because it feels like he's just never had a chance. Like
they keep not giving him opportunity.
And I understand it when it's like Quay Walker and Cooper are ahead of him. And then like he's battling it out with McDuffie. And McDuffie has just been Mr. Steady Eddie. Like I think McDuffie is underrated. But like when Quay left, I was like, okay, like we talked about this. Like, okay, like they're gonna give Hopper a chance here, at least. To like, and then nope, never had a chance. Never even had a chance.
That was my thought going into the off season. And it's like, okay, they're probably not gonna, it doesn't seem like they're gonna be re-signing Quay. And so they must believe in Hopper. Well, perhaps
yeah,
not.
Exactly. Anything else on Hopper you want to say? I mean, it's just I am interested in him because I would love to see him get the opportunity. And hot take, the problem is I actually think McDuffie is ahead of him by like a good amount. But I think by the end of the year, even with everyone healthy, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if McDuffie and Cooper are the starters and like Hopper and Franklin are battling it out for 3. Because I'm skeptical on Franklin after how poor he was last year.
You know, one thing I'm looking at the linebackers for the Packers last year for the whole regular season and postseason. Quay Walker had the lowest defensive grade
of ours.
All 7 linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
With a 46.
Yeah. The thing is, Quay was good at certain things.
His tackling grade is excellent.
That's the thing, and that's the thing that Franklin has struggled with in his career, or at least the last year. He's not been a good tackler. The last few years, really, he's not been a good tackler. But yeah. My next player is at a position that I think is also a bit up for grabs, which is Kamal Hadden. And the caveat is he's coming off major injury, and so we don't exactly know what he's going to look like or when he's going to be back. So I want to add that out there.
Hopefully, there's a chance he might the same length. He doesn't got a Joe Theismann thing going on,
and there's a chance he might not even play this year.
I wanted to watch that.
No, that injury back.
Video.
No, not at all. There's a chance he might not even play this year.
I never actually saw it.
No, I never actually went back and watched it. But like I said, chance he doesn't play this year. But he was kind of starting to pass Carrington Valentine on the depth chart last year. Like Kamal hadn't only played 2 games, but in one of them against Minnesota, week 12, so not the fake Minnesota game, the real Minnesota game, he played 31 snaps. And against Baltimore, he played 6 snaps. And then I think that was the game he got hurt in. But he was starting to get like more and more work with like the ones with like as like a key, corner ahead of Carrington Valentine, who, like we always joke about, is the guy that is always we have been trying to replace Carrington Valentine for years now.
They keep sending one guy after another to take his job, and they like something keeps happening to him.
Exactly. It's like it's the curse. Carrington Valentine's putting hexes on him. But for Hadden, I just think that he's like a guy who, was a draft pick from Kansas City, has some pedigree, like is an interesting player, and looked like pretty decent when he played. So I just think that, if he's able to get back healthy, if he's able to like play like he was at the end of last year or like when he was playing last year, I think there's a non-zero chance that he's in the mix at that corner spot with Valentine, Nixon, Cisse, St. Juste, like with those guys, Damani Jackson, and that it's really like a 6-man competition with those 5 guys and then Kamal Hadden. And I just don't think we're talking about Kamal Hadden very much at all recently.
No, he's not been getting much attention. I think people have kind of forgotten about him with that injury. And that injury happened so soon after he looked like he was taking the job. And so he didn't really get much of a chance to get out there and show what he could do.
Yeah. And so that's another thing is it is such a small sample size that like him playing well maybe doesn't mean anything. Like maybe it was just like so little that it doesn't matter. But I do think the corner position should be a totally open competition, and I think he, with him like essentially pushing Carrington Valentine for snaps last year, I think he's very much in that conversation if he's healthy. But that's really all I had to say about him. Who was the next player you had?
So I'm going in the secondary. Is this the same draft? As I'm going Katan Oladapo. Just kind of see if he's going to get his opportunity now. One thing I'm thinking is like, Bullard is seeming more and more like a full-time nickel corner rather than a safety. Or maybe only fills in emergencies. And I don't know if they really have a decent nickel to send in for him if they wanted to rotate Bullard back to safety. And Oladapo is significantly bigger than their other safeties at 217 pounds and has shown some flashes. Remember when he got in, they had to fill in a couple of years ago. It's like, oh, this guy looks good too. But then he hasn't really had much time since. So they might be telling us what they think. But I'm curious to see what he can do if he gets a chance.
Yeah, I mean,
and also this idea that
where is he going to get used is the other thing, because he's gotten some snaps in the slot sometimes.
Yes, they did put him in a little bit when Bullard had to sit down or something. They tried him in the slot. Now, he could be like a dime backer if they want to have like extra. Gannon does sometimes do some weird things with lots of defensive backs, so that could be an opportunity for him to get some playing time, particularly as a bigger safety. But we'll have to see. I mean, that's kind of he's more of a. I'm interested in keeping an eye on what's going to happen with him this year with a change. And is that alignment, those weird formations from Gannon, was that preference or necessity?
Yeah,
at Arizona, because they were.
With all those 3 safety looks, was it just like
I got
and was that even
these
Gannon?
Are the best players I got?
And was that even Gannon? Because it did sound like he kind of. There were reports that he was kind of a little more hands off on the defense and let the DC kind of do his thing, and that maybe that's
the head coach.
Yeah, and so maybe who even knows? Because that's one of those things that's hard to know. But I like Oladapo. I feel like every time he plays pretty well. Now the other thing I wanted to ask is like, I do think Hafley got like really good play out of the safeties, and I wonder if like how much do you think that is like a Hafley thing? Like, do you think the safety position will be less, like the safeties will play less well under Gannon?
It's possible. I mean, we had things like, was it under Hafley as well? Like Zane Anderson, you look good. Katan Oladapo, you look good too.
That's the thing. Zane Anderson looked good. Zane Anderson was pretty much, no offense to him, the definition of just a guy. And then
he's like a special teamer only.
Yeah, and then he went out there. He was like, oh, this guy's actually like he could play. He could be the third safety on a lot of teams. Like he's pretty good.
He's not killing us out there like you might expect.
No, I've seen way worse safety play. Way worse safety play. And so and so I do wonder how much of that is coaching. And so maybe Oladapo looks worse in this system because of that. But I also am like curious because he's pretty dang big. So you could maybe use him in some weird kind of linebacker role, like closer to the line of scrimmage, maybe as like a slot guy. The other question is like, who is the next guy up at nickel if Bullard were to miss time? And like, is that Oladapo? Do they put a corner there? Is that Keyshawn? Like, I don't know. Who do you think the next guy up at slot would be?
I mean, they might do Keyshawn because he's done it before. Valentine can't be in the slot. He would get. They would run it at him every single time, and that's like just an unfortunate reality. And St. Juice, he could probably do it. I don't know how well he could cover the shiftier corners. He's got the size,
that's the issue. The issue is
support.
If he's like quick enough, but it's not like Oladapo's like the quickest guy in the world. Like he's a big
Nixon
safety.
Did not do well.
Keyshawn's built like he should be a good slot corner, but he did not.
He doesn't have the agility.
He's played better outside than
He's a straight line runner.
Yeah,
and actually, you don't realize if you look at his numbers, like, oh, this is actually the agility is like the worst part of his profile.
Exactly. The next player that I had on the list is an interesting player because I'm not going to tell you he played well last year. Not even a little bit.
No, call
I'd be
into
lying.
question
Yeah.
your judgment or veracity.
But I'm interested because essentially last year was in some ways like an entire like they were just holding on this player, and that's Big Sleepy, aka Nazir Stackhouse.
Right, Mister. You said narcolepsy.
His narcolepsy, yeah. But his nickname apparently was Big Sleepy. He did not play well last year, and I'm not here to tell you he did. But the defensive line is wide open, and there was clearly a thought from the people in power in Green Bay that they liked him a lot as like a developmental-ish guy because he kept hanging around the active roster even though he'd be inactive on game day. Hanging around the 53-man roster even though he'd be inactive on game day. And he played more than I actually thought. He played 170 snaps last year. Not a lot of them were particularly impactful, and 45 of them were in that Week 18 game against Minnesota, which like not a real game. So really he played like more like 120 snaps. But struggled. But I do think the defensive line room is entirely open. Now, we also don't know what kind of injury Hargrave is dealing with and how long-term that is, so it might be even more open, unfortunately.
Oh, and they will not tell us a single word.
Not until they are literally forced to. But I think we're going to need help on the run defense, and that is what he profiles to help with. At least he wasn't very good at it last year, but he profiles to be decent in run defense. And there was clearly a thought that, hey, we want this guy around going into next year. I think last year was kind of like a redshirt year for him. So, I don't know. There are not a lot of guys on the roster that can play nose tackle. Now, not a super great sign that Warren Brinson was ahead of him as a nose tackle, like a guy that's not even really like built like that type of player. But what are your thoughts on Stackhouse? I mean, there's also I think there's there's a chance he contributes this year, and there's also a chance that he does not make the final roster.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm not counting on it. Let's put it that way. And I think that Brinson is going to outsnap him. I think he's in a battle with Jonathan Ford for a roster spot.
Yeah. I think.
And frankly, if Riley didn't blow out his Achilles, he might be on the team instead of either of them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's tough because like I don't think there's a whole lot of like evidence to make you think he's really going to be like a high impact player. But
he's another player where I like the idea of him. So can he live up? But also maybe it takes a while for nose tackles to really come into that. I don't know, is that grown man strength or whatever before they really become impactful.
And that's the thing. He would need to be better. Is like the thing. Like he's not making the team if he plays like he did last year. I think last year they were kind of like, okay, we'll see what we have with you. It's not a whole lot of pressure on you. Like we're gonna like let you play through like your lumps, but like he was a priority like UDFA for them. Like they gave him a good amount of money, and so they clearly had like a vision for him and kept him around and kept him practicing with like the top 53 guys. And even though he was not active a whole lot of time, although he was active for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 real games. Like he was active for the wildcard game. He played 14 snaps, although to be fair, by that point, the defensive line was so decimated, they were just begging for anyone.
Yeah, and a lot of people had him higher than Brinson going into the draft, even though they drafted Brinson and got Stackhouse as an UDFA.
Exactly. But that's my next one. Who's your next one?
So my next one, I'm going with a deep dive here. An UDFA from this year, Dylan Wade, a guard from Auburn, and I'm bringing him up because he's been getting run with the twos in the spring practices. He's got a 9.23 RAS, elite speed, 94th percentile, 10-yard split and 40 time. Decent, a little bit above average on the jumps. Didn't do agilities. Good bench. It's a little short, which I think maybe is and his hands are pretty good size. His arm length is slow, so it's a little bit below kind of their typical height, I would say, for interior offensive linemen. But he's kind of similar in terms of a little bit below their arm length, I guess. By like a little less than an inch. But the athleticism tracks. He's getting run with the twos. He also had some on speed, good on speed deceleration and acceleration at the Shrine Bowl with the Zebra Tech measurements when he was coming out of college. And I had been kind of keeping my eye on Josh Geske as a player of interest, who was also tested very well. I think his RAS is even better than Wade's, but Wade seems to be ahead of him in the depth chart so far in the spring practices. So this guy I'm going to keep an eye on it, whether he can earn a roster spot as a depth interior offensive lineman or not. It's a little hard to tell with injuries, who's really where on the depth chart. It's like, well, if you had the injured players in, where would they slot? So well, I'm just going to keep an eye on what these, because I feel like it's a battle between, you've got Wade, you got Geske, you got Donovan Jennings, and Udfa, who's been there for 2 years now, hasn't really been able to lay a firm claim to a role. You got Monk, who they keep trying to replace to the point where they're trying John Williams throwing snaps out there, which apparently he's not a center. And
I mean, it's just weird that we have like a lot of centers on the roster, and John Williams is just like, what if we also made John Williams a center?
That was the thing that surprised me. It's like, what is going on? Do they just need, or is it they've decided that we want Josh Burton to play guard?
Jagger Burton, you mean?
I mean, Jagger Burton. Yeah. How can I forget Jagger Burton?
Exactly.
Yeah, we want Burton to play guard, and so we're gonna put somebody else in the backup center because maybe Jagger Burton's gonna be a starter at guard. It is no longer our backup center.
I mean, it's not wild at all to say.
That's not off the table at this point right now with what we've seen.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, you could say a lot of guys are injured right now, like along the offensive line, and so guys are having to shuffle around. It's entirely possible Kennard is ahead of Burton. Because every time Burton has gone in, Kennard has already been in. And so, like, that's...
There have been times where they started together. Kennard at right tackle and Burton at...
And Burton at right guard.
At right guard.
Because with Tom out... Well, it's been...
Sorry.
Because Burton's, I think, mostly been the starter when Banks has been hurt. Because Banks and Tom and
I know what happened.
Have both been out.
One time he was with the ones... Belton was at right guard. And so he was there ahead of Kennard one practice.
Yeah, Belton was at right tackle, you mean? But yeah.
I mean, yeah, Belton right tackle,
and
Burton at
right guard. And then sometimes it's been Belton at right guard, Kennard at right tackle, and sometimes it's been Kennard at right guard, Belton at right tackle, and sometimes it's been Kennard at left guard, I think. Or no, Burton at left guard, like Belton at right guard and Kennard at right tackle, because with Banks and Tom out, like they've had to really shuffle it up. And so it's hard to tell. But yeah, like you said, the offensive line is we'll say it's in flux. We'll say it's in flux.
I think the depth is a mystery right now, in particular.
Yeah. I think anything else you want to say on Wade, because I think he's an interesting player. I have a player that I think is also pretty far down on the depth chart as my last one. I'm not entirely sure how he fits, but I do think he fits this defensive system better than the last one. I think he makes more sense in a 3-4 than a 4-3, and that is Colin Oliver, who, second-year player, fifth-round pick at Oklahoma State last year, designated pass rusher / linebacker, which is why I think he maybe makes a little bit more sense, because in a 3-4, sometimes your edge rushers are going to need to drop. And I think he probably profiles, besides Micah, as the edge rusher that is most
foot speed.
Well, just as a smaller guy with a little bit more movement ability. Like, he's not like. Can you imagine Lucas Van Ness dropping into coverage? That dude is too big. Well, he's too big.
Here's a question: maybe we won't have to imagine it.
I know we're going to see it. We are. It's going to look horrifying. I think
Preston was this big monster dude.
That's what Preston was. I think like kind of underrated in that aspect because no one liked seeing him into coverage, but like. He was actually not bad at it, and I think part of it was just his arms were so freaky long. He took up a ton of space.
Able to cover the windows.
Took up a crazy amount of space, like a pterodactyl.
So, and I would like to say something about my thoughts on a 3-4 versus a 4-3.
Yes,
a 3-4 is really a 5-2.
Yes.
It's really a 4-3 versus a 5-2.
Yeah, and really everything is a 4.25 at the end of the day. Like it's all mostly nickel anyways. It's all ball bearings. Don't you know? It's all ball bearings. But no, so I think Colin Oliver makes more sense. And we just didn't see him at all last year. Like he was hurt all of last year. And I think he's hurt again now, unfortunately, as well.
He hasn't played a snap of the spring practices. Is that the reporters have been there for?
Yeah. So it was said that it was not the same injury that kept him out last year, which is either good or bad, I guess, depending on how you see it, right?
Right.
And so he was a guy that only played in one game last year, and it was that like kind of fake-ish week 18 game against Minnesota, but he had a couple pressures. He had one stop, so it wasn't like he was like totally out there doing nothing. He actually graded pretty well in coverage. Overall, PFF didn't love the way he played, but I'm interested to see because I just want to see him out there. He's a different flavor of pass rusher than the rest of the guys on the roster. Is more of a speed-based guy. He was really good rushing the passer in terms of like his rate statistics when he was at Oklahoma State. He has the ability to maybe play off the line, like fall off the line of scrimmage and drop into coverage, which I don't think the other edge rushers have. Like I just don't see that being a strength for LVN, Sorrell, Cox, like really any of those guys. DDS maybe, just because he has such long arms. I think he could maybe do it, but we've been having him pinch inside as like a D tackle
right.
pass
Instead
rusher
of getting
type.
further outside in coverage, he's going deeper inside.
Exactly, and so
formation.
Colin Oliver's just a guy. 5th round pick isn't nothing, and he's going into his second year, and we really haven't seen anything from him. Kind of similar to John Williams. So I don't know. I'm interested in him. What do you think about Colin Oliver?
I guess we'll see. He's got a different. He could have a unique role that none of the other edge rushers have. But I say so many guys. I like Brenton Cox. So we felt like he's too far up the depth chart to really talk in detail about this episode. And I've talked about it before. Not every chance I get. No, maybe. But I do feel like Oliver and his injury history and the number of players that are going to end up in front,
that's the thing.
Fighting is that they've got Sorrell, and they just added DDS and Cox and LVN.
It's a very crowded room, and he's already behind the 8 ball, and the fact that he's not practicing is not a great sign.
I'm surprised they haven't tried him
at linebacker,
at off-ball linebacker at all. As far as I know.
And the thing is, when they drafted him, they were like, this is a designated pass rusher type. This is a type of player we haven't had before, I think was like the phrasing they used.
Right, because it was before they traded for Micah.
And it was we were talking about when they drafted him was like, oh, like the value of quick pressures and like that idea.
Yeah, we had talked about before the drafts. Like they haven't had
a quick pressure
rusher
guy exactly in a long time.
Bull rush guy.
It's like, who was the last speed rusher they had? Like Clay Matthews.
Yeah, I mean he had speed though. He also power, but he was
whereas a guy who could really bend the edge, besides Micah, of course, but like
before they added Micah. Yeah, because Clay had crazy good like 3-coners.
Because Zadarius, Preston, Gary, all like bigger guys.
Yeah, he's like 270.
Yeah,
and LVN, all these like 270-pound edge rushers.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on there are guys out there like, what was his name? Who was the edge rusher? I want to say it was like Arizona State that they drafted. I can't even remember if they were playing him more as a Carl Bradford, where he was like a linebacker kind of combo guy. He was probably more of a linebacker though. But I'm just thinking of like smaller guys that they drafted. But anyway, I'm interested in Colin Oliver. I don't really have much more to say about it. But anyway, any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I'm good. Some of these guys I'm interested to see if they can find a role. Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily predicting they're going to be a major contributor, but I'm very interested to see how some of these, bottom of the roster, but guys who could be contributors.
Any
out.
honorable mentions? Any guys that you considered briefly and then didn't get a chance to touch on? Because I'll go first. I thought about talking about Kyron Drones, as like a third quarterback, because I think it's less about this year and more about he might be the number 2 next year if he has like a nice time with the scout team and in preseason this year. Like that's on the table. And then I almost had Damian Martinez because he was a guy that a lot of people liked coming out of college, coming out of Miami, I think it was. the U. And, as more of a pure runner type, I think that's interesting, because right now we don't really have like a true backup running back that like we can, obviously, hopefully it's Lloyd, but we'll see on that. So I almost went with Martinez. Those are like the two guys that I was like also considering.
Another guy, I guess I mentioned him already, is Nair.
Yep, Nair's a good one.
And maybe started him, but we've talked about him as one of the new players out of this year. We talked about him a little bit already, but Nair's a guy that could have deserved a mention. I thought about talking about Jacob Monk a little bit.
Yeah. I do feel like we've talked about Monk.
But
have we talked about Monk more games than he's played? Like we talk about Monk, and we talk about Williams, and we talk about what was the other player you were saying? Oh, Brenton Cox. Like such an inordinate amount of time. Like we spend so much time talking about those guys for how much they actually play.
The other guy if you talk about guys who haven't played very snaps, is Marshawn Lloyd.
We talk about Lloyd a lot, but to be fair, a lot of people talk about Lloyd a lot, and he's a more interesting player.
Way too far up the depth chart,
exactly,
at the moment,
than these other guys
to qualify for this episode.
Yes,
Glover is another guy I thought about.
That's another guy where, we were clearly high on him, and there have been reports that the Packers, coaching staff is high on him as like a backup. He came into that playoff game as like the next man up, which didn't go very well, and he was immediately replaced by Telfort, but there was clearly some faith in him and some belief in him there. And so he was a bit of a project coming out of Georgia State, was it? Is that where he ended up coming out of in that draft?
Right. I think it's Georgia State.
Same draft as Monk, 6th rounder. So, that's another, I think, would have been a good pick as well.
Yeah, I think he's been running with the twos at right tackle. I think at right tackle at two.
Back to tackle a little bit, which is like surprising because he was like
they were
a guard convert.
Trying him out at guard. But like as you said, when they tried that in the game,
it didn't. But
to be fair,
go well. To be fair to Travis Glover, I do feel like that was like setting him up to fail. Because it was like, okay, here's like the first time you've ever played guard. It's a playoff game, and it's against the best defense in the league with Carter and Davis and all of like that entire monster of an Eagles front. And it's like, yeah, good luck. You got this, buddy. Like, that's all you. And so I was like, okay.
It's just right. It's like, okay, people think maybe you could be guard. We're giving you no practice at it, but we're going to throw you out there. Remind you of anybody? Hey, Anthony Belton.
Yeah, Anthony Belton said, of course, first time. But anyway, I think those are my honorable mentions. Those are your honorable mentions. I guess we'll wrap things up here. Thank you for listening again to the Father Son Packers podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a review, tell a friend, tell a stranger. We'll be doing episodes every single week for the entire off season, so keep it tuned here. I think we're going to start trying to do our NFC North discussions, our deep dives into the NFC North soon.
If I could ever finish that analysis,
I need to help. It's in my court now. It's in my court now.
Well,
so
it's only a third of it is in your court now.
That's true.
There's still a good chunk left that I haven't done.
Yes, but bit by bit. So that's the goal in the coming weeks. We'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about training camp. And then once the season starts up, we'll be doing 2 a week, so keep the dial tuned here for that. But anyway, thank you again for listening. Once again, follow us on Blue Sky as well, at Father Son Packer. We will talk to you next week. But until next time, go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.